UFC 318, Poirier versus Holloway 3 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Carli Judice versus Nicolle, Caliari. What an absolute barn burner to kick off the card. No, but seriously, this probably will be somewhat of an entertaining fight. I'm going to go with Carli Judice getting this one done over Nicolle Caliari. And it's based on Cariacate, which is a former opponent of both of them. I thought Cariacate very clearly beat Nicolle Caliari. But they gave Nicolle Caliari the win. She got takedowns in the fight. She failed a ton of them, but she got some of them. I think she got 3 takedowns, 1 per round on Cariacate after Cariacate outstruck her. So they gave her the win, which is always a risk in women's MMA. You don't want to pick the one that's going to do more damage, because if someone does get a takedown at the end of the round, the judges will just give them that round sometimes. But I think Carli Judice, I thought she got robbed by Cariacate on the Contender Series. She definitely could have won that fight as it went on. She was doing a lot more damage. I thought she could have won against Cariacate on the Contender Series, and I think that Caliari should have lost to Cariacate, and I think Carli Judice should have won against Gabriela Fernandez as well, who's pretty good. She outlanded her, did more damage, got taken down. It's one of these weird ones, but she also showed some takedowns in that fight as well. So I think I'm going to trust her to be a little bit better at dealing with some of the takedowns from Nicolle Caliari than Ernesta Cariacate was. And I think that'll lead her to do very well here. She's a lot taller, 5'7" to 5'3", 68 inches of reach to 62 inches of reach for Caliari. I think she's going to give her the same problems that Cariacate gave her, but she's going to do it a little bit better because she can look at that performance and adjust based on it and tweak some things. I know Caliari can do the same, but I think she's going to have a problem with rangy fighters regardless. And I think Judice is a little bit better at range than Cariacate is, so I'm going to go with Judice. Coming off a head kick KO, got momentum. I think she got a performance bonus for that as well. Right back in there. I reckon she gets this one done. But before we move on, up the card, this video is sponsored by prizepicks.com. Go to prizepicks.com. New users that use code GURU to sign up to be a new member of prizepicks.com. Play $5 and get $50 instantly to use. That's very, very good. If you use code GURU, if you play 5, you get 50 to use instantly. And for my picks this week, I'm going to go with Kevin Holland to fight for more than 10 minutes against Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going to say that Islam Dulatov fights for more than 4.75 minutes against Adam Fugitt. And I'm also going to say that Paulo Costa is going to land less than 63.5 significant strikes against Roman Kopylov. And if you put down 20 on that, you could get 120 back. That's what I'm going with. Let's get back to the card and the breakdown. Moving on, up the card, Brunno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey. I'm going with Jackson McVey. Looks like such a character from a film in the early 2000s of a, you know what I mean? He looks like such a coming-of-age movie character. Jackson, oh, that's Jackson McVey. You don't want to mess with him, dude. That's Jackson McVey over there, dude. His dad did time. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what he reminds me of, but I think he's going to lose. I reckon he would have won against his original opponent that he was supposed to be fighting in the UFC, the Argentinian dude. That ended up actually getting cut from the UFC. He's no longer signed because he messed up the weight cut that badly. But I never thought he would make the weight anyway. They called him on like 2 weeks notice, but I guess don't accept if you're not going to make the weight that well. But I reckon that Jackson McVey is going to lose to Brunno Ferreira, mainly because he's been in the mindset to fight for a while now, in the weight cut zone and all of that. Now he's coming down to fight at 185 again against Brunno Ferreira. Was supposed to make his debut a few weeks ago, didn't end up happening. So he's kind of been in this sort of depleted state. Now he's got a matchup against Brunno Ferreira. And Brunno Ferreira is a very, very good middleweight. He's a little bit small for the division, a little bit short, a little bit too stocky for the division at times. But he fumbled a win over Abbas Magomedov. And if he would have scored that one, he'd be in a very good position in the middleweight division right now to start looking for his own ranked test and ranked opponent. I think this is a bit of a mismatch. Anyone else? Jackson McVey is good. He's got good grappling. Some decent entries on takedowns, but Brunno Ferreira is very strong in those situations, and he's shown that he's no slouch in the jiu-jitsu as well. I think he just got a submission win in his last one via an armbar or something along those lines, if I remember correctly. He's very good. Brunno Ferreira is very good. He's dynamic on the feet, very powerful. Knocked out Gregory Rodriguez in the first round. What are they giving Jackson Vey this in his debut for? He could win and it would be a stunning performance. But it's such a risk, and the guy has been saved by the bell on the regional scene and made it into the second round. He came back to win. Like, he's a good fighter. He's a tough dude, and he's well-rounded, and he's got jiu-jitsu. I don't like his stand-up all that much. His stand-up seems a little bit desperate, a little bit rushed, a little bit hesitant. And I think if that's the case against Brunno Ferreira, you're probably going to get knocked out. So I'm actually going to say this is going to be a second round TKO for Brunno Ferreira. Jackson McVey will try and mix in a few things, maybe try out some clinch work against the cage. I don't think it's going to succeed. They're going to get into the second round. The fight's going to start happening a little bit more naturally, a little bit less hesitantly. And Brunno Ferreira is going to find comfort. And when he does, he'll put out Jackson McVey, in my opinion. A little bit of a mismatch for a debut fight. We move on. Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. Oh, you know what? Out of principle, yeah, I don't know if I can logically tell you guys to like put faith in Ryan Spann. Am I off? I know that Brzeski lost to Bidet but got robbed. And listen, he's had his own heavyweight stinkers as well. I need to trim my beard. He's had his own heavyweight stinkers as well. But after Ryan Spann's last performance, I don't know if I can ever pick him again. And I might have to make the statement to never pick him again. He is downs. Like, he doesn't have a brain in his head. With the Anthony Smith performance and losing to Anthony Smith. Guys, listen. Brzeski beats Smith. He does. He just does. That version of Smith that Ryan Spann fought. Brzeski, how you fucking pronounce his dumbass fucking spelt surname with a Z in the fucking middle of it for no reason. Sorry. Brzeski, or probably like Brumbrowski, or whatever you say, is going to beat Ryan Spann. He would beat that version of Smith. I'm going to go with him to win. Ryan Spann throws wheel kicks when he's wobbled by Waldo Cortez Acosta. Like, oh, I got wobbled. What should I do? Wheel kick. He's a dumb human. I don't think he's capable. So I'm going to go against Ryan Spann. I can't. I've been saying this for so long about Ryan Spann. Normally, I trust light heavyweights to move up and do quite well. But you know what? I'm going to go with Brzeski, or however you pronounce his name. He actually went to a decision with Volta Walker, which isn't that bad. And we saw Volta Walker just fucking bulldoze over Kennedy Nzechukwu and finish him in the first round with a heel hook. I know it wasn't the best Volta, and he looked a little better on the regional scene. Maybe cycled this, I don't know. Looked in completely different shape for his debut than others. Maybe he just wasn't ready for his debut. I know Brzeski got off the roids from the regional scene. If you look at pictures of him on the regional scene compared to this. But I'm going to go with Brzeski. He's got experience now in the cage. And Ryan Spann's just shown his lack of IQ one too many times for me to trust him with a prediction. So, and plus, watch Brzeski be taller than him, even though Ryan Spann's listed as 2 inches taller. So, I'm going to go with Brzeski getting this one done. We move on. Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. Again, I just can't, in good faith, tell you guys that Jimmy Crute is going to win a fight. What weird fighters to put on this card. These are the guys you're saving for pay-per-views? Seriously, though, guys, think about that for a second before I even get into this prediction. Hey, guys, make sure you save Ryan Spann and Jimmy Crute for the pay-per-view coming up. These are the apex guys. The forgettable guys. They're not going to be anything type guys. Why are they on paper? This should be the spotlight for prospects. Saving guys like Jimmy Crute and Ryan Spann for pay-per-view spots is insane. I'm going to go with Marcin Prachnio. Although Jimmy Crute's performances against Alonzo Menifield haven't aged that badly because Menifield is quite dangerous for the division. I think Prachnio's a way slicker fighter than him. He's got really good low kicks. We've seen Jimmy Crute have problems with low kicks before. He got exposed by Anthony Smith's low kick skill in their first fight that they had. I thought he could have continued and won that fight if they didn't step in. But either way, the doctor stepped in. He had a perennial nerve damage to his leg back when that was happening. After the O'Malley one quite a bit. It hasn't happened since. But I think Prachnio's pretty good. And I don't think he's going to get out-muscled on the ground here by... Oh, no. Is he going to get out-muscled by Jimmy Crute on the ground? Fuck it. I'm going with Marcin Prachnio, man. My problem is the Vitor Petrino thing with Marcin Prachnio, but Dude, Jimmy Crute's so fucking bad on the feet. Can I trust him? I've always said this about Jimmy Crute. He looks like he's fighting while stepping on Legos. Like someone's like spilt Legos all over the canvas. And Jimmy Crute's got to like hobble across it to get to his opponent. He fights like he's got cerebral palsy. I've got to go with Marcin Prachnio here. He's not 6'3". He's probably shorter than Jimmy Crute. I'm going to go with Prachnio. Experience at this point in the game. Jimmy Crute just doesn't seem to have the anatomy to do things correctly in the cage. The way he plods in and steps around. I like Jimmy Crute, though. I hope he wins. But again, out of principle, I just can't. I can't see someone that bad and that low level. And then even when Prachnio loses, I still think he's a wicked striker. You know what I mean? I still think those things about him. Like, look at him schooling Khalil Roundtree. That's very impressive. You know, against Modestas Bukauskas, he catches him with that very close range question mark kick. And Modesta somehow survives it and then catches him back. And I'm going to go... I could so see Jimmy Crute submitting him. Annoyingly. Now I'm saying all this out loud. But you know what? I don't think Crute can get respect on the feet enough to where Prachnio is going to be giving up dominant position once he hits the ground. Like he did against Petrino, who's a massive power puncher that could knock him out at any moment. And then a guy like Modestas, who's a big dude, who's very technical and good at landing KO blows here and there. So I'm going to go with Marcin Prachnio to beat Jimmy Crute here. We move on. Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov. I'm going to go with Islam Dulatov over Adam Fugitt. Pretty obvious. Again, another mismatch of a debut. But Adam Fugitt's not bad. He has got some wins. I mean, he's coming off a win against Josh Quinlan, was the guy's name, by split decision. Not the best of performances, don't get me wrong, but the guy's had some wins. Like, he's not just this guy here to lose, you know, but he has fought some really tough opponents. And he's got some pretty odd matchups for himself here, including this one. He fought Michael Morales early doors and took him to a third round. Got TKO'd in the third round. Listen, man. This is why I say, and I said on the Prize Picks thing, that this fight's going to be over or more than 4.5 minutes long. More than 4.5 minutes long. Because Dulatov, although he's a first-round finisher, Fugitt can make it tricky. Like, he's a survivalist in moments. You know what I mean? He has been finished early, but in the second round against Mallet and in the third round against Morales. So he's made it somewhat tricky for previous opponents that have been meant to destroy him in the first round. And it's Dulatov's debut. Or, because he won on the Contender Series, right? And also it's welterweight. So it's not like a hugely first-round finish heavy division. So maybe if it was middleweight Dulatov, I'd think otherwise. And he had a bit of size over Fugitt, who knows? But I'm going to go with Dulatov. I think he'll get this one done. Second round TKO finish. I can see ground and pound. I can see some kind of clinch situation. Yeah, I can see him just beating up Fugitt and out physicalitying him somehow with the TKO. Not catching him with some slick shit, just sort of like bulldozing him. And that's going to take a bit longer than the first round. So I'm going to say that Dulatov finishes this by TKO in the second round against Adam Fugitt. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Ateba Guatier versus Robert Valentin. I'm going to go with Ateba Guatier here over Robert Valentin. This is a tricky one, though. Valentin, if you're not trying to just like Torres Finney him against the cage, he is quite dangerous. Like, he's a quite dangerous guy. He's got good finishing potential as well. I think he may mix in the offensive grappling here if any of them do. He probably will. I don't see Guatier trying to keep this on the ground. I think he'll try and sort of keep it standing. And I'm going to go over Ateba Guatier. They say he's a young prospect. I think he could be 50. You never know these days, some of these guys, you know. Could be 50 years old for all we know. But I think he's got some potential in the middleweight division. I don't think it's as high as the potential as some people are suggesting. You know, we've seen him lose before on the Contender Series. He did show some problems in his game here and there against someone who's not UFC level whatsoever and was basically brought on the Contender Series to lose to Guatier so they could sign him. And he ended up winning that one, but he got taken down and there were some moments I wasn't too sure about. But he beat his honorary fat Mexican guy that's really tough, and he knocked him out, which is impressive to do for your first honorary flabby Mexican guy that can't be KO'd. because he broke that. You know what I mean? He chinned that guy really badly, big knee up the middle. So he is good. Valentin's wild, though, which is why this is a risky pick. But I'm going to go with Guatier. I'm going to say that he gets a TKO win. Sometimes Valentin does a lot of upwards movement when he jumps up to throw his jab too, or he jumps up to throw a kick, or sometimes he'll do like a standing fucking hammer fist or some crazy shit. So yeah, I'm going to go against Robert Valentin. I like the activity, though. I like the activity from Valentin. But I'm going to go with Guatier. Valentin, at times, he like jumps up into his stuff, and that lifts his chin in the air. I reckon Guatier is going to find that chin in the air and probably TKO him. So I'm going to say first or second round TKO for Ateba Guatier over Robert Valentin. But Valentin could make it tricky, so it's interesting. We move on. Francisco Prado versus Nikolay Veretennikov. Nikolay Veretennikov's the guy who had a few close fights with people. Danny Barlow, and remember we rated that so highly, and it didn't end up being something that you should rate that highly. Am I wrong for saying that Prado ain't no fucking welterweight and that's why I'm not picking him? Prado is not a welterweight guy. He just isn't. He's 5'10", 69 inches of reach. He's had okay-ish moments, but he's just not, he's not for this division. He's not stocky enough. He's not strong enough. He's not a takedown guy, so him having a 69-inch reach and being shorter than his opponents is no advantage. He's a striker, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach disadvantage here. And Veretennikov's fought good comp, and he's well-trained, and he's well-rounded, and he's taller and rangier. I'm going to go against Francisco Prado. Here. In moments in fights, he's just seemed very predictable in what he's going to do. And sometimes that can be the case when you're a shorter dude because there's only so many options. He's not going to be flicking head kicks at range or like trying to land his teep to the body or work a low kick game on the back foot. He's got to get on the inside and work. And that's just a much simpler game plan for him to approach than it is for Veretennikov it is Veretennikov's game plan for Prado to approach. So I'm going to go with Veretennikov getting this one done over Francisco Prado. I just don't think he's cut out for welterweight, man. I don't know who convinced him he was. You're a lightweight. In fact, you're a fucking featherweight. Like, shrink your fucking giant Drew Dober-shaped head and get down to the featherweight division. Like, shave off some of that fucking jawline clippings and give some to Yuri, because you've clearly got some to spare and he's in need of it. And we'll work from there. But I don't think he's a welterweight. He's too small. And he doesn't have the pop in his shots. It's not like, Prado's shorter and smaller. He needs to work his way on the inside. But he's got that power. He has some, but it's not notable enough to be that big of a factor going into a matchup. So I'm going to go with the well-rounded welterweight in this welterweight matchup in Nikolay Veretennikov, even though he's had a few stinkers and is lost to Danny Barlow. Although Danny Barlow's good, you know, not that good, according to Sam Patterson. Yeah, I mean, Raw Britannia. We move on. Up the card to another fight. Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. No idea why this is on the prelims with Phillips versus Oliveira. This should be on the main card. UFC have no idea what they're doing. This is the big matchup of the card. Bad blood. Heated. Which makes me not want to go with what I'm about to go with here. Bad blood. Heated. Okay? They don't like each other. They fought each other before at a casino. Where Brendan Allen just basically charged at Vettori and threw like 4 punches at his chin, and Vettori ate them all like his mama's spaghetti and then tried to land back but didn't do anything back really. But he just ate all of the shots that Brendan Allen threw at him. You know, classic Vettori. Ain't going to catch him with anything that'll send him to the canvas or the ground of a casino. No matter what, you can't drop Vettori. But you can out-decision him. But Brendan Allen is dumb as fuck. He is quite dumb the way he fights. With jump into bad positions and making incredibly... Like, he'll be winning in one realm of the fight and choose to enter a completely different realm of it. Then he'll be losing a certain realm of the fight and choose to stay within that realm of the fight. There's just no telling what game plan Brendan Allen is going to have or if he's going to stick to it in the first place. So, I'm going to go with Brendan Allen to win this one. That's how little at this point I think of Marvin Vettori. Is that crazy? Brendan Allen will low kick. He will body kick. He will throw head kicks. He will throw shots to the body and to the head. He will mix in grappling. He will try and mix in some jiu-jitsu and get to some dominant jiu-jitsu positions. Just by being willing to be an MMA fighter, I'm going to have to side with Brendan Allen here. Fresher in his career as well. Took a round off Nasilinamavov in the first round. Wasn't the most exciting round. He just kind of kept him on the ground for the whole round. But he took down Nasilinamavov. Kept him there. Allen's a good opportunist for certain moments. He just fumbles a lot of opportunity in his fights. I don't think Marvin Vettori's got the power to really damage Brendan Allen, you know? And I know that Strickland TKO'd him, but Strickland dropped Adesanya, you know what I mean? Things happen in fights. But with Marvin Vettori, he seems like the type of fighter that isn't going to be a threat to Brendan Allen. Like with Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis, I bet you Allen was worried about taking any more of those body shots or taking any more of those shots to the chin. He got wobbled in that fight. He got wobbled in the first fight they had as well. So I think Allen at all times is somewhat worried of his opponent. Like, oh my God, this guy's hitting me hard. I don't think he knows he has the best chin. I think he knows he can be KO'd. He's probably been KO'd in a gym before a few times. Wobbled, knocked down, whatever you want to say. So I think sometimes Allen is hesitant against opponents and makes bad decisions because they're very dangerous. Like they could put him away at some moment. Marvin is going to be a stable decision. No upping in momentum. No upping in volume. 30 strikes, maybe landed around for 3 rounds. This is a 29-28 decision, written all over it, with Marvin Vettori landing about 90 significant strikes and Brendan Allen landing about 90 significant strikes. However, of Marvin's 90, 80 of them are going to be 1-2s. And most of Brendan Allen's are probably going to be body kicks and low kicks and big hooks and uppercuts in the clinch. And he's going to mix it up a lot more. I wasn't impressed by Marvin Vettori's return after injury. That's also a part of this as well. He was injured. He came back after a long time off to reinvent himself. Looked just as shit. Lost to Roman Dolidze. Now has taken more time off again. Not too much, but, taken some time. And now he's looking to get back in there. He's also got a lot of personal stuff going on, Marvin Vettori. So I can see him carrying a lot of emotion aside from the beef into their fight. I'm not even going to get into it, but if you know, you know. He's lost a family member, let's just say. I won't go into details, but I'm going to take all of that into account, and I'm going to go with Brendan Allen. Out-hustling Vettori to a 29-28 decision win. I don't think he'll keep Vettori down, but I can see him taking him down for a second. Vettori getting back up, Allen in on his waist against the cage, knees to fire a couple times, drags him down again. That type of grappling will be done, I think. Not too successful, but enough to mix it in order for Allen to win a decision, 29-28. We move on. Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'm going to go Vinicius Oliveira, and for one sole reason. It wasn't just the Rob Font fight, but it was. It was the Rob Font fight, should I say. It was the Rob Font fight, but it wasn't just because he lost to Rob Font. You can lose to Rob Font in this game. And I know losing to a... oh my God, dude, that is fucking... There you go. And just because you lose to a New England cartel guy doesn't make you automatically dog shit. It kind of does. But Rob Font still kind of got it. You know what I mean? He can give problems to people. I didn't think he beat Gene Matsumoto, but he still scored a win and made a close decision with him. But the thing is about the Kyler Phillips-Rob Font fight, you ain't got no adjustment. You've been training your whole life. You'd put your whole career into this. You don't have no adjustment to Rob Font figuring you out, walking you down. You couldn't deal with that pace at all. And then looking back, you start looking back at fights and thinking, I mean, he did kind of get fucking walked down by Howley and Paver in rounds 2 and 3. He did really badly lose round 3 against Howley and Paver, now we're thinking about it. Like, there's a lot of... That was at the time, like, he fumbled a finish and he went too hard for a 10-7 in round 1 and he didn't get it over Howley and Paver. But then looking back, it's like, well, no shit, this guy can't go 3 rounds hard. He's throwing head kicks and wheel kicks non-stop. And they're not finishing guys often enough to be a factor. It's like Zabit, right? Maybe it'll take a 5-rounder to beat Kyler Phillips for a Vinicius Oliveira. Maybe it will, but I'm willing to bet that it'll take 3. And I think Vinicius Oliveira will finish Kyler Phillips. And I think he's got a really good pace. And he put that pace on Bernardo Sapai when he finished him in his debut. I know Sapai took it on short notice, but he was training. And Oliveira came out there, eventually weathered a bit of a grappling storm. I don't see Phillips getting off grappling here. Vinicius Oliveira looked really good against Ricky Simone. And as we found out recently in Ricky Simone's career, the guy's still got it. He's still beating good contenders. He's just coming off a win against Smotherman. Before that, he knocked out Basharat. Like, he's still there. And he dominated Smotherman and knocked out Basharat in the first round. And Oliveira schooled him. Oliveira fucking schooled Ricky Simone, man. And he's had some really good performances. Said Nurmagomedov performance. He broke him. And this is a very similar matchup as well, I should mention. The Said Nurmagomedov matchup and the Kyler Phillips matchup are very similar here for Vinicius Oliveira. Dynamic, rangy strikers may mix in a very athletic takedown, but typically they're going to be flicking stuff at range. You got to get to them, and you got to break them down, and you got to work them and make them tired. And that's what Oliveira's been able to do. So I'm going to go Vinicius Oliveira. Very impressed by the Ricky Simone performance. He was inventing new combinations on Ricky Simone. Schooled him, shut him down, made me think Ricky Simone wasn't going to beat Basharat and would struggle with a Smotherman. You know? Like, that performance genuinely made me think, Ricky Simone's done. He was all right, but he's done now. I know he had a decent scrap with Mario Batista, but I think he's cooked. He's washed. But Oliveira, no. Turns out he's just that good. So I'm going to side with Vinicius Oliveira. He's a little bigger here as well than Kyler Phillips. I just think he's more durable. He's got more dog in him. You know, lock dog. He's got more dog in him. Phillips seems a bit perfectionist. Pretty striking only. Doesn't like it when things get gritty. Seems a little bit of a pansy for the sport, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go with the dog in Vinicius Oliveira. Getting this one done by third round finish over Kyler Phillips. I think he'll have a statement performance. Good thing it's not on the fucking main card though, right? One of the best bantamweight matchups we have. Bad blood at middleweight. Make room for Michael Johnson, Zell Huber, and fucking Kevin Holland, Daniel Rodriguez on the main card. Put Costa on the fucking prelims. Ige, Pitbull. Like, where is your understanding of the fans of the sport? This is the matchup. This is my co-main event. And it's not even on the main card. To make way for Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zell Huber. Fucking lame. Absolutely lame. Either way. Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zell Huber. A good matchup. I'm going to go with Daniel Zell Huber over Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is good, and he has got some wins, and he's got the ability to pull an upset off. But Michael Johnson used to be a fighter who could lose to some mid opponents, but then beat the best opponents in the world. You know, like, he loses to a bunch of other guys, like Clay Guida and names like this in the division. And then he goes on and he beats Dustin Poirier. He has a win over Tony Ferguson. He has some very sneaky good wins that put him way higher in the rankings than maybe he should have been early in his career. But he got those wins, so he deserved to be there at the time, right? Since recently, I mean, he beat Darius Flowers, and I wasn't all that impressed with his performance there. But he won. But I'm impressed from his performance, expecting him to lose. I didn't think he was going to lose that fight, but he's the older unk of the division. So anything he does that is successful will impress you. But when you just look at it from a perspective of, like, if this was Zell Huber, how would I rate this performance against Darius Flowers? It was a dog shit performance. You know, if this was Zell Huber, how would I rate this performance against Alan Patrick? It was a shitty performance. You know, and he has some KOs. Ottoman Azaitar's shit. Swings like a fucking maniac. Paid for his whole career, pretty much. Powerful dude, but swings like a fucking tard on the forward. When he's moving forward, Ottoman Azaitar swings like a fucking tard. And I picked Johnson to KO him because he was bound to get KO'd eventually. Frevola chinned him. Johnson chinned him as well. Johnson's been slept recently. He's had other fights that have been a bit like Jamie Milwaukee went to a split decision too. So now there's just too many, like, just barely above bottom level lightweights that are actually giving him like a close fight. Jamie Milwaukee should be dealt with. And Zell Huber would deal with him in the first 2 rounds by TKO, I think. So that's the difference that I'm noticing here between the two of them. I'm going to go with Daniel Zell Huber. He's got a good chin. You know, he got cracked by Ribovic really bad. He recovered well. That was the last fight that he had. He's had a lot of time off since then. He knows how tough he is now. He got right back to the gym, I'm imagining, and worked on his game. That was a good wake-up call. I like that he got a wake-up call before going in there with a guy like Michael Johnson. If this was earlier in his career, maybe Johnson would have been his Ribovich. You know what I'm saying? But he's bounced back. He's had a wake-up call. He knows there's levels that he's got to get to. And I think that's a good thing to be going into a Michael Johnson matchup with. Like, I've got something to prove. I've got to get back on track. This isn't him like, just keep my streak, just keep winning, and then boom, Johnson catches him with a very fast punch combination. Like, no, this is going to be a technical matchup. I think they're both going to be striking with each other at range. And even the fucking Jacasey fight was very close. And I think Zellhuber would do very well against these guys on the feet. So I'm going to go with Zellhuber. He's got a reach advantage, height advantage, leg reach advantage. And this is going to be a stand-up fight where they both strike with each other. I'm going to go with Zellhuber getting this one done by decision. 29-28, 30-27 type shit. We move on. Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. I'm going with Dan Ige over Patricio Pitbull. The thing is about Patricio Pitbull. First of all, I don't see him out-grappling Dan Ige here. I think Dan Ige is very tricky to out-grapple, and you have to be like a jiu-jitsu specialist grappler to secure a dominant position against him. If you're just going to wrestle against him, it's going to be pretty difficult to do. Dan Ige is a short, stocky dude for the division, and very powerful as well, and very strong. And he's good in those wrestling exchanges. I see Pitbull getting cracked on the inside here, man. And I see him getting put away and chinned. Short, stocky power puncher has been a problem for Pitbull before. Chandler slept him really bad on the inside. Pitbull is one of those things where he doesn't excel enough in any individual area to be a factor in the sport. And I know that he's been a Bellator champ, and people are saying, what do you mean not a factor in this sport? He was a Bellator champ. The Bellator champ. You know what I'm saying? You know, UFC champion. He doesn't have dominant grappling to where he can get submissions often. He doesn't have good submission ability. He doesn't have good grappling control. He can sometimes mix it in with takedowns, and he's kind of a women's MMA fighter. He's alright at striking, but you ain't gonna see no KO. He's alright at grappling, but you ain't gonna see no massive slam. You ain't gonna see no really cool takedown and ragdolling moment. He's alright at submissions, but he ain't gonna get one. Yeah, I mean, he might get to a position where he could, but he won't get one. He's alright at low kicks. You ain't gonna be limping around. He can go to the body quite well. You never have a liver shutdown against him. Pitbull just does everything meh. And that's enough to beat some like one-trick ponies at Bellator. But I think Ige's going to put that mustard on him and put him out cold. And it was also the Yair Rodriguez performance as well. That's got to be a part of this as well, right? Where, come on, man. Yair Rodriguez. Like, he's good, but you did nothing to him in that fight. Other than a takedown in a moment. And I think Yair's got worse takedown defense than Dan Ige. Other than a takedown in a moment, he had nothing for Yair. No answer. No adjustment, just straight up ass for 3 rounds in his debut. And now he's just going to be older. Right back into a training camp against another opponent. And Dan Ige, on the other hand, is riding high. He's off a big win over Sean Woodson. If he gets this win, he can start looking towards the top 10 and start looking to get his name back in the mix. He knows he made it very close with Lerone Murphy, who's a top contender now, who's going to be looking for his own top contender matchup. So Ige knows he's right there. I'm burping a ton. I don't know why. Probably because this card sickens me. But I'm going to go with Dan Ige over Patricio Pitbull. Getting a KO win. He's a slight favorite, and he should be bigger as a favorite, in my opinion. We move on. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland over Daniel Rodriguez. Rodriguez does surprise me, man, because he isn't all that. And technically, he's a very bad fighter. But he's a scrapper, you know what I mean? He is a cage fighter. That's what he is. So I'm not going to rip into his technicality too much, although I probably will in just a second. But D-Rod's a confusing one because I thought Ponzinibbio was going to beat him, and then it looked like Ponzinibbio was figuring him out, and then boom, he catches Ponzinibbio in the 3rd round. Gets it done over him. But then he also loses to Neil Magny and doesn't take... Like, he is dumb. He's a dumb guy in the way that he fights. Bad fight IQ. But he's got good hands. I just don't see him finishing Kevin Holland. I don't see him TKOing Kevin Holland. I don't see him getting a submission over Kevin Holland. He's probably more likely to KO someone than submit them usually. And I don't see that happening with Holland. Holland's known to be a very, very durable guy. I said this on Prize Picks. I think this is going to go more than 10 minutes fight time. And I stand by that. I think this is going to distance. I think this is going the distance, should I say. Unless Holland fucks up Daniel Rodriguez so bad that he eventually finishes him in the later rounds. But I see this being a late finish. I see this being a decision, something along those lines. And it's to Holland. Holland has the finishing potential advantage here over D-Rod. Holland has the ability to go the distance well above D-Rod here. I think he's got better cardio than D-Rod. He's rangier. I mean, he's going to have a, 7-inch reach advantage. And this is a guy in D-Rod who likes to keep people at the end of his punches in combinations. So I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. They have the same leg reach, which is interesting. Shows that Holland is kind of all torso when it comes to his height and neck, I guess. So I'm going to go with Kevin Holland getting this one done by decision. I mean, the guy took JDM to a competitive decision. JDM kind of shut him down and schooled him, but he still kept it busy with numbers and strikes. And you know the UFC love him, and the judges love him, and the crowd loves him, so they'll be roaring for what he does as opposed to what D-Rod does. So even if we end up in a competitive 29-28 fest, they're going to lean towards Holland anyway, you know? So, I'm going Kevin Holland. I'm going Kevin Holland to win this fight by decision. A little bit too rangy. I just don't see... I mean, Ponzinibbio was able to pepper a jab on the inside against D-Rod and sort of win on volume in round 2, eventually getting hurt in the 3rd, and even had a really good first round for himself as well. I think Holland's just more in his prime than Ponzinibbio. I know Ponzinibbio gave Holland problems with the low kicks, but Holland put him away bad as well. So, I'm going to trust in Holland. I think he's better at distance with punches than Ponzinibbio, who was on his way to maybe beating D-Rod before getting caught in the 3rd. Holland won't get caught. He won't get finished. He's too durable. So, I'm going with Kevin Holland. We move on. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Big 2025 co-main event, huh? Fucking hell. I'm going with Roman Kopylov over Paulo Costa. Paulo's from the era of the division where Adesanya could be champ, so it's a lot weaker back then. You know? A lot of former welterweights. This was a time when, like, Kelvin Gastelum was, like, giving Adesanya... Like, the division was very weak at that time. And Costa got to the top. You know, I don't think he beat Romero in that fight, but it was very, very close, and he could have beaten Romero. And I'm not just picking against him because he ignored my request for an interview on this fight week, which would have been absolute cinema. And I can't believe that we've now missed out on that opportunity. It's pathetic. I may still make a video about Paulo Costa's memes, though. Let me know. But Paulo Costa, I just think he's not busy enough in fights. He doesn't do what he should do. He'll throw now and then, and he'll throw something dynamic now and then. But I'm going to go with Kopylov. He's busier. He's more active. He's not spent, you know. What even is it about Costa? Why can't he fucking win? I know he does all right in moments. But it just feels like he don't throw punches to the head and land them on opponents anymore. Anyone else? Like... Costa will rock Whittaker with a wheel kick in round 1. Calf kick him a lot. He has some decent calf kicks now, I guess. He'll jab to the body now and then. But I feel like I never see Costa punch anyone in the face anymore. Like, very, very rarely do we see that. So, I think Kopylov's just going to be peppering at him. And peppering at him. And then he's going to be able to switch it into these fast twitch moments. Whereas Costa's going to be going full force at all times. But here's the thing with Paulo Costa. He does everything as hard as he can, as fast as he can. No finishes. Never will. Like, it's a real weird thing, Paulo Costa, because he looks like he should be a problem. And when he hits you, you think, how are they not going down? But eventually that happens against enough opponents where you're like, oh, well, Costa don't hit hard. Costa don't kick hard. He just doesn't have finishing potential in the middleweight division. And with his time off, and I know he's had a lot of training time, and he obviously wants this win so he can continue his career in the UFC. And if he wins this one, then he'll be looking at top 10 opponents again and big names on the horizon. I completely understand. But This feels more like Kopylov's journey than Paulo Costa's. Costa's trying to cling on and get something back and, you know, get his mojo back. I don't want you getting your mojo back against Roman Kopylov. And, you know, Chris Curtis was a bit of a problem for Kopylov because he's shorter and stockier and he rips the body well. And, you know, I feel with Costa, he's a little taller. He's taller than Kopylov. He's also a bruiser as well. But he's going to be at Kopylov's level. You know what I mean? He's going to be up there where Kopylov can land on him as effectively as he wants to and go to the body against him the way that he wants to. I do worry about Kopylov being a little bit out physicality, but with a bit of a reach advantage here as well, which isn't normal for Kopylov to have at times. I think he's going to give Costa a lot of problems. If Costa's got to watch out for head kicks of his own, of Kopylov's coming towards him, I think he's going to shut down a little bit. Get those forearms kicked a bit, then we never see him leave we never see a punch leave his shoulders ever again for the rest of the fight, and he's just sort of wandering in and putting his hands behind his back, jab to the body, low kick, and simple shit that can be dealt with. So I think Roman Kopylov can study Paulo Costa's game and pick out the 3 things that he does on the feet and figure it out, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov, getting this one done by decision, 30-27, maybe a TKO, but I'm going to go decision. We move on. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. I guess I'm taking the slight favorite of Max Holloway here. I didn't expect him to be a favorite, but I understand it and I agree with it. I'm going with Max Holloway getting this one done by decision. I'm going to say decision win for Max Holloway. It's not just that, and here's the crazy part. I don't see them chasing a finish on each other the same way they would against another prospect. Does that make any sense? And I'm only talking about the fact that I think this fight's going to a decision with this part, not in terms of this isn't because it like anything to do with my prediction. But the fact that I think this fight goes to distance, I think Holloway wins, but the fact that I think this fight goes a distance, it's because I don't see them really putting it all in to finish each other. Like if Poirier rocks Holloway, I can see him doing a bit of a got you with that one. And then maybe try and go in for something, but I don't see him pouring it on if he notices a scent of weakness like he did against Benoit Saint-Denis in round 2. Same with Holloway. I know there's some spitefulness and they're going to try and lock in with each other, but don't you think once certain fighters are like esteemed, like they're heralded enough, like a certain fighter reaches a certain level of respect, they just end up going to a lot of fucking decisions? I feel like that is the case a lot of the time when it comes to Holloways and Poiriers and some of these other guys. Poirier often gets finishes, but against each other, you know, when it's like one of those matchups, they always seem to go to distance. So I think this fight's going to go to distance. And I think Holloway's going to win because he's not retiring after this one. That's a big deal. That's a huge factor when it comes to a prediction in this fight. Poirier is retiring after this fight. He's done. That's it. No more. He may continue, but I'm assuming that he's not going to because they're going to do a package for him and it's in Louisiana. He will retire after this fight. I'm sure of it. And he even says, I'm never making 55 ever again. I'm going to get on roids. I'm going to get yoked and jacked in my retirement. And he's already talking about things. Whereas Holloway's talking about getting his back with Ilya, you know, like getting his get back with Ilya and getting back into the picture. Like they're talking, Oliveira's talking about a potential Holloway fight if Holloway were to beat Poirier. So Holloway's still in his prime for legacy. You know, even though he lost to Poirier and now he's suddenly out of his prime, even though he wasn't beforehand, he was in his prime, the best he's ever looked when he beat Gaethje, which we're going to talk about here as well, because they both have fought Gaethje. I think Holloway's still in it. You know, he's still in the mix, and I think that's a good mentality difference to have over a guy like Dustin Poirier here, who's on his way out. You know, it's not going to be the same level of intensity. You're not going to dig as deep knowing this is your last one, compared to you thinking that you might get a title shot with a win or something like that. So I'm going to trust Holloway in that regard. I'm also liking the fact, I know Holloway's coming off a KO loss. He took some time and he's moved back up to lightweight. If he was coming back at featherweight against a Gene Silva after the KO loss to Ilia Topuria, now we can start. Is Holloway going to be the same? He's cutting down to 145 again. You know, last time he did this, he got KO'd. And Gene Silva's a really big power puncher. He's got a ton of momentum. He's just starting his career. He's in his prime. He's coming up. Maybe then there would be an argument. But with Dustin Poirier, he's a little older. And I think he's looked the worst he's ever looked recently. That's another part of this that I'm immediately going to segue into. I like that Holloway moved up to 55 after the KO loss. I think that's good, subconsciously, for him to think about his chin. Like, oh, I got KO'd, but now I'm at 55. I feel good at 55. You know, I can take Gaethje's shots at 55, who he was saying hits harder than Ilia Topuria as well. A lot of cope. But, that's the thing. Dude, Holloway made Gaethje look so dumb and stupid in their fight. I know he eye-poked him a few times, but he made him look so fucking bad and simple in their fight. It made me think, why couldn't Poirier do this? And not just why couldn't Poirier do this. Watch back Poirier's fight with Gaethje, the rematch. But he didn't look good. He looked quite shitty in that fight and ended up getting head kick KO'd in round 2. I had Gaethje to win that one by second round KO as well. Poirier, I think, had a prime. Even in the Makhachev fight, listen, whatever. But let me stick to one thing at a time. I think Poirier against Dan Hooker and the McGregor fights were like, that was his time. You know? That was his peak moment. And then, you know, he had his Holloway rematch where he looked really good, and we can talk about that at the end as well. But I think there was a niche moment in time where Poirier looked really slick in what he was doing. You know, when he was moving out the way of stuff and bopping his head, and it was like, damn, dude, Poirier's a really slick, high-skilled, leveled fighter. You know, even against Dan Hooker, even though he got caught, you could see the slickness in the pocket and him mixing in the takedowns as well. That was something that we don't normally see from him. So I think he looked really good in that fight. But past that, you shouldn't be like struggling like that against Benoit Saint-Denis. You just shouldn't. You should be destroying him. It's Benoit fucking Saint-Denis. You know? He's not that top level. Then you got his fight with Gaethje in the rematch. He gets KO'd. Then a Makhachev fight where he's getting stung early. And I know the takedown threat is there, but I just feel like Poirier's stand-up has regressed a little bit. Like, he focused so much towards the end of his career to perfect his takedown defense and his grappling to a level where he could eventually beat the guy who had the belt, if it was an Oliveira or a Makhachev, who were all grapplers. That he kind of maybe went away from his bread and butter. Or he maybe went away from his striking just a tad in training to where he's lost its perfection. Just a tad. And I think Holloway's game plan is always to strike, you know, against even his big challenges. He's got to strike with him to win. Volkanovski, Ilia. So he's had to hone his striking and always has had to do that. Whereas Poirier's kind of had to check his striking and put it on the back burner in his training camp and think, I've got to focus on this and focus on that. And I've got to do a whole few months of wrestling defense and defending with a guy on my back and jiu-jitsu defense. I don't see him taking down Holloway here. I see this being a stand-up fight for 5 rounds. And I think that Holloway's more in his prime striking-wise than Poirier is. So I'm going to go with Max Holloway to get this one done. Much better than Poirier at striking, I think. The Gaethje fight was just such an eye-opener. Very, very skilled is Holloway. So if he's in any way in form, he'll be good. And you got to consider the rematch that they had. Holloway nearly won. I know that people see it as, Poirier done it again. Dude, Holloway nearly won that fight. Poirier won rounds 1, 2, and 5. He had Holloway hurt in the first 2 rounds. Not denying it. He did wobble him in those first 2 rounds and crack him with some big shots. And in round 5, he rallied and Max had a big cut on his eye and Poirier ended up rallying for a victory and landing some of the better shots in the 5th round. But in the 3rd and 4th, Holloway arguably won those rounds. And there was moments in the 4th or 3rd, I think it was, where he had him in a dash choke at end of one of the rounds. Really nasty dash choke he had him in. He also had him in a really nasty position against the cage where he was really badly hurt from Holloway, and then Holloway threw a jump knee and Poirier kind of shot in a takedown at the same time and ended up getting Holloway down for a second, and then Holloway pulled the dash choke on him. But Holloway had moments where he could have finished Poirier in their second fight, so let's not say it like Poirier shut him out or anything like that. I'm going to go with Max Holloway getting this one done. Fully prepared. He took that second fight on short notice, a little bit flabby, upper weight class, wasn't prepared for it. This is going to be proper 155 Holloway, taking on 155 Poirier, the way it should have been in the second fight, where I think Poirier will start strong, But you know what? I may go Holloway 49-46, 50-45. I could see a very dominant performance from him. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I think there's going to be a lot of moments where Poirier's getting the crowd behind him and we're going to be cheering and shouting and oh my God, what a fight. But I think Holloway's just going to be that one step ahead. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. And then give me Holloway Oliveira 2 next. That's the fucking matchup to make. Goodbye.